by any of the things. Maybe raped and molested, or maybe bribery kind of thing, or maybe honor killing, but someday there is not a single day where a lady do not die in that hospital. Is this hospital a parable of Pakistan? It's quite a comical way of putting the thing that Muhammad Hanif comes with this novel. There is The Lowland. It's a story about two brothers, Udyan and Subhas Mitra. Again, one stays at the home, one goes abroad. One becomes an Naxalite, one becomes a scientist in America. The scientist comes back and he finds the family being shuttered down because of the Naxalite and the kind of a thing. So the retelling of this story do happen in various, we have seen in Pakistan, Bangladesh, here India again. The same metaphor do play a vital role in the narrative, and it is a kind of a good question to ask, that why again and again this metaphor is retold in our contemporary narratives. Udyan, drawn to the Naxalite movement, a rebellion ways to eradicate inequality and poverty. He will give everything, risk all, for what he believes. Subhas, the dutiful son, does not share his brother's political passion. He leaves home to pursue a life of scientific research in a quiet coastal corner of America. The Immigrant by Manju Kapoor is a story of Nina and Anand. And it's an arranged marriage. Again, a girl marries and goes to America. The story normally, the Canadian diasporic writers from India are very well acquainted with arranged marriage by Divakaruni. Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni also deals with the themical patterns. It's a chronicle of middle-class Indian manners. Well, here there is a different way of looking at the things, a bit comical, a bit satirical, that the husband of Nina, the Anand, is suffering from a sexual problem. And then the problem of the husband and wife cannot have physical relations, and that goes on playing for a longer time in the novel. Her meat eating was the result of fragmentation and distress, not a desire for convenience. And she starts adapting with this cultural conflict of eating non-vegetarian food, clothing styles, and it normally comes in a streak of a Jane Austen way of writing by the female writers of diaspora. Her body was her own, and that included her digestive system and her vagina. Mother's death, what will she make of her Western feminist independence? When she goes on walking on the path, irrespective of her husband, and taking control of her digestive system by eating the food which she normally do not take under cultural constraints, or also have an affair with somebody else, speaking that my body is mine and I can do whatever in that sense. But this Western feminism gets a jolt when a message comes that her mother has passed away in India. Mother wanted to come to her, and what was the cause of coming? That when you become pregnant, when you become mother, I will come to take care of your child, And then there was no possibility of her becoming a mother. And then she is jolted within that, what would I do with all this Western kind of a thing, whereas I cannot make my mother and my family happy with any of such things. Scope is narrower, and its mode is more of a comical. The interesting writing by Pankaj Mishra, it's from the ruins of heaven. It's a very post-colonial kind of a reading that comes here. And Mishra tells the story through the biographies of the three public intellectuals. The itinerant Persian-born agitator Jamal al-Din al-Afghani from Afghanistan, then Chinese reformer Liang Qichou from China, and Rabindranath Tagore from India. He joins the links of the South Asian intellectuals of the time when the sun never set on British Empire. And then their thoughts, their intellectuality is posed against the intellectuality of the Westerners. And then there is a conflict which he brings in. Through many setbacks and wrong turns, a powerful, contradictory, and ultimately unstoppable series of ideas were created that now lie behind everything from the Chinese Communist Party to Al-Qaeda, from Indian nationalism to Muslim Brotherhood. Why there is Al-Qaeda, why there is communalism. One form of atrocities of humanity that you find in Afghanistan, you find in China, you find in India, you find in Pakistan. What are the root cause of these ideas that he tries to investigate? And the root cause were human, they were not anti-human. And somehow the implementation of those ideas turned into very much what we call an anti-humanistic kind of a thing. Usha K.R. deals with the metaphor of the monkey man. A few years back there was an idea and some monkey man was surfacing in the metropolitan cities at night and was attacking the people sleeping on the streets and other kind of thing. So playing on this metaphor, he tries to bring out a kind of a phobia of glowing cities in India. What was it that they saw? A bat, a malevolent avatar, a sign of the displeasure of the gods, the grotesque mascot of a city that is growing too fast and crumbling too soon, or merely a monkey that has lost its path. And she makes use of several characters, and through their characters the narrative goes on interpreting the monkey man. Using evocative prose that reflects a profound understanding of human nature, Usha K.R. delves into the lives of her characters and their unexpected linked destinies in a city that has grown from pensioners' paradise to a frantic hub of the country's IT industry. That is Bangalore. And Bangalore can be replaced with entire India, or it can also be considered as South Asia. Interesting work by Uday Prakash. So it is written in Hindi language, Delhi Ki Diware, and translated by Jason Grunbaum as The Walls of Delhi. Again, 3 stories like Jamil writing in Pakistan, and the 3 stories deals with corruption in Delhi, in India. There is in one story there is a character like Mohandas, a Dalit, and Mohandas plays on the name Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and Mohandas this that comes here. And then there is in another story there is a small child. As he grows on younger, he becomes very intelligent, and his head is growing. And he gives the name Mango Sil. The name of the story is Mango Sil. And Mango Sil is the name of a disease that is given to that child. That says the child is very growing faster than expected intelligence. Now, Life Apart by Neil Mukherjee is a story where we find a gay protagonist like Ritvik, and it deals with Ritvik, a Kolkata orphan boy in Oxford University, and his everyday life of a gay in the London societies. I do not take much time because there is a narrative within narrative, and then again Tagore comes, and one of the Tagore's character is being novelized by Ritvik in his own writing also. Necropolis by Jit Thayil, it deals with a eunuch protagonist. Now these are some of the experiments that are coming, like your protagonists are not the simple man or a woman, goes beyond this, and we find a gay or a eunuch as a protagonist of the narrative. Arvind Adiga's A White Tiger, which also deals with New India, corruption in India, and various ways of looking towards India. Amitav Ghosh's last one, River of Smoke, which takes us from India to China and the opium trade that was there once upon a time during by East India Company, and that history is being retold, going back to the history and retelling the history that we come to see here in the writing. The same thing is also in Narcopolis by Jit Thayil. There is a Chinese digression, Chinese revolution, and the opium becomes the major thing in that narrative, in this narrative also. Well, I also brought these writers talking about their own works, brief videos, but we do not have time to view those videos. In one video which was here, which I will not see, but we'll just talk about it. One person is asking Amitav Ghosh that, what does this opium stand for in this narrative? How can you is it really the story of the opium trade by East India Company, or it was the other thing? Well, it says that there is a character known as Bahram, which sounds like Barak, who is a good Parsi businessman, who is doing the business in China about the different trades, and he may like, may not like, but willy-nilly he is doing the things. Well, and then this O stands for oil also. And recently there is this oil politics that goes on around the world, like America, the way it goes on attacking one country after another country, but the conspiracy theories of the oil politics becomes quite stronger year by year. We are discussing this on the point when Syria is under a dangerous threat by another American attack. One poet, Meena Kandasamy, speaks or writes about Indian myth, or she takes head-on, as Farooq Gandhi said, that who are the writers who took head-on the myths of their own religion or the countries. Well, she is quite bold, quite infamous because of her poetries, and she, in her preface, she very boldly writes about herself, like, call me names if it comforts you, I no longer care. The scarlet letter is my monogram. I sew it on everything I wear. I tattoo it into permanence. I strive to be a slut in a world where all sex is sinful. I strive to be a shrew in society that believes in suffering in silence. I strive to be Sphinx, part woman, part lioness, armed with all the lethal riddles. Come, unriddle me. But be warned, I never falter in a fight, and far worse, I seduce shamelessly. In her poems, very remarkably, she takes on some of the major concerns which a traditional Indian mind finds more problematic in a way. She boldly likes that Dharma, justice, Dharmaraj Yudhishthir, and his father was unknown, so Dharmaraj is bastard and justice is bastard in India. Or she also writes about Eklavya and says that you don't need left thumb to pull a trigger or hurl a bomb. Or about Mahatma Gandhi, her views are quite bold, very openly writes in one of the poems that you big fraud, we hate you. And the last one also about Indra, Narendra, perfected science of slaughter, the genocidal god of the gods, on the infamous incident of 2002 and Narendra Modi being an attack of her writings. Well, these are the voices, a polyphony of voices that we see from the contemporary South Asian writers. They come out with this kind of a thing. Very quickly, time is running out, the observation. Coming to the films, the zeitgeist of this popular sentiment is by and large very well captured in popular culture. Films, one of the best mirrors to see representation of new myths, sweetly quoted bitter truths, and we find a kind of a perspectivism. Sweetly quoted bitter truths. So they seem to tell us a funny, a kind of a fantasy story of escapism, but is there any kind of a truth or a reality being captured which on a surface layer is perhaps not visible? Normally we find in popular Indian cinema, for example, they deal with the presence of Pakistan in the collective consciousness of India. So Indian movies and the Indian heroes, the protagonists, rarely go to another countries apart from Pakistan. Their voyage for any kind of, there are raw agents. Agent Vinod and Ekta Tiger and the last one Madras Cafe. But they find the last one is a good example that he goes to Sri Lanka. So there is another country which has been explored, but then a very good opportunity to explore Sri Lanka has been missed out in Madras Cafe. And so the culture, the society, the people of Sri Lanka remained absent in the movie. We have some interesting, this movie, and there are many, it can be listed down, like the series of the thing which deals with the kind of a thing. And then there are some interesting scenes also in some of the movies, like for example, Kurban.
The word jihad is mentioned in the Quran about 41 times. The words mercy, peace and compassion are mentioned about 355 times. Yes, come in. Come on in, Reyes. Sit down, please. Contrary to popular belief in most Western cultures, Islam is a religion that preaches peace and tolerance. Yes, Patricia.
If Islam truly is a religion that preaches peace, then how come the world's most troubled spots, the West Bank, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, they're all plagued with Islamic terrorism?
That depends on your definition of terrorism. Some might argue that the US invasions of countries like Iraq and Afghanistan are also acts of terrorism.
Those were acts of war to get rid of despotic regimes.
Or means of getting at a country's oil.
Conspiracy theories.
Well,
Yeah?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Nancy.
Mr. Khan is right. I mean, if we're talking about terrorists, the world's biggest terrorists are the white superpowers.
Come on now.
No, really, stop and think about it.
Explain 9/11.
Okay. Do you know how many people died in the Twin Towers strike?
Around 3,000.
And do you have any idea how many people died in the bombing of Afghanistan? Take a wild guess. More than 15,000 people died. And that's just conservative figures. About 50,000 tons of explosives were dropped on innocent civilians. Men, women, children.
But that was because of the Taliban.
Now that you brought it up, did you know that the Taliban was a creation of the CIA? To fight the Russians.
Whatever. They were still harboring terrorists.
Yeah, right. Terrorists that were never found. Just like the weapons of mass destruction that were never found in Iraq. Do you want to get into the death toll in Iraq? 500,000 civilians and counting. And what do Britain and America say when they don't find these weapons? It's simple. They just say sorry. And still refuse to relinquish control of these countries.
What are you trying to say?
What I'm trying to say is that just because you're American, wear a fancy suit, and call yourself the president, doesn't make you any less of a terrorist. I'm saying that if you don't stop meddling in other people's countries, you will face a backlash.
If Muslims like you feel that way, then why don't you get out of our country?
Well, so just stop meddling in other countries, or the other voice, why don't you get out of our country? Well, there is the voice that normally remains as a sound, even in the debates between the South Asian countries, like Bhutanese poet says, get out of our country. In India says, get out of our country. So this voice is normally, this is how not only the West and the East, but within the South Asian also the strong voice normally remains. Well, there are very interesting movies in Pakistan like Khuda Ke Liye or this Ramchand Pakistani. There is a brief trailer of the movie.
पाकिस्तान के लिए जासूसी करते जाते हैं।
मैं कोई जासूस नहीं हूँ साहब।
नहीं तो पाकिस्तान और इंडिया की लड़ाई क्या करिए?
Movies from Pakistan, how it portrays, even Khuda Ke Liye is an interesting kind of a thing. And there is a movie like Veer Zara, which does not take us into the Western world, but then it portrays a Pakistani a lawyer, a female lawyer, who fights a case for one army personnel who is in the prison cells of Pakistan and tries to see that he can get out. And that is one movie where there is no West, and there is a kind of an answer that we can also lead towards a better way of living within this narrow domestic walls. Some of the questions like, is literature representing what ought to be done, or the question like, literature do what we want it to be done, or rather it will be faithful to the truth reality of human condition in South Asia, or perhaps it is not performing its role in rather metaphorical way. The journey across the borders, that of Bahram in River of Smoke, or a boy in Ramchand Pakistani, or that of Veer in search of Zara or agents of Indian Road, Vinod Vikram or Tiger, symbolically expressed a desire to breach the borders and willingness to see that the narrow domestic walls become so porous that such songs do not find space in our imagination, and humans enjoy the freedom like birds, rivers, breeze. We aspire to see no more Ramchands or Tor Bazes. or Guljanas, sacrificing on borders of our fragmented South Asia. And there is no need to write such kind of songs like Panchi Nadiya Pavan ke Joke, koi sarhad na hame roke, kya paya humne insan hoke. I end with the idea of Tagore and Gandhi. When they spoke about the political liberty, rather than Swaraj, they thought of Suraj. We can think of the same thing in South Asia, that rather than Swaraj, the Suraj, which can perhaps be something that our literature can also look towards. Reading of all these literatures and some of the good movies, we can say that it gives us a reason to be hopeful because of the freshness in narrative, newness of metaphor, and confidence, boldness, and fearlessness of new breed of writers. Thank you all of you.
It's been high quality, but we are already running short of time. That is why I had to send you 2 messages to conclude. Anyway, I beg your pardon, sir, for this. And out of the audience, I realized that despite the fact that it was a post-lunch session, they gave you a rapt ear. To be honest, this is my observation. Now, may I please call